Building a strong relationship requires families and schools to actively communicate with one another. Schools vary in how they develop a relationship with their students' families and how they welcome the families. Some parents may be unsure as to how they can create and develop a relationship with their child's teacher and need guidance as to how they should communicate and what the school's expectations are for parent involvement. The connection between the child's home life and school life is important, and in order to sustain a connection between both spheres, schools and families need to work towards making a concerted effort that builds a relationship.
horta xiriirka ka dhaxeeya macalinka iyo waalidka aad buu muhiim u yahay sababtoo waxa waaye marka xiriir wanaagsan ka dhaxeeyo cunugii baa horumar gaarayo laakiin waxay ku xiran tahay shakhsiga ku xiran tahay sheekadaas sababtoo waxa iskuulka marka tagis ma waxa arkaysaa macalinka inuu xiriir wanaagsan dhex maray oo ku sheegay cunugaaga meesha waxbarashadiisa maraayo wixii loogu baahan yahay oo markaas soo hoosaagto ku qiimeynayo oo gurigaaga markaa wacdi telefoon tiraadana ku arkaa rabo kugu soo celinayo oo balan kuu dhigayo midnana inaad bini aadan tahay waxaa tahay ma yaqaana adiga cunugaaga qiimo ma ka fadhiyo marka taasna cunuga dhibaato weyn u keenaysa waalidkii wuxuu noqonayaa frustration.
Due to language and cultural barriers, some teachers and parents may rely on the student to act as a translator and a vessel for communication. This places an incredible amount of responsibility on the student and has the potential for creating a filter for communication.
بهذا الموضوع هو العلاقة مع الأستاذ بتكون من خلال ابنك. ابنك he goes and talk to the أستاذ, he comes and talk to you. So he communicates more من ما تكوني physically there.
Sometimes the child probably do something at school, right? The principal or teacher try to discipline the child. Some parents, the child will come home and give their version of the story. The parent will just take whatever the child says. They go to the school, they get upset with either the principal or the teacher. That's not good. You have to go sit to teach the principal, your child, and listen. Because once the child is in front of the principal or the teacher, I don't think that child will be that brave to be lying. And if it's your child, you'll know the child is telling a lie. So I know most parents just go and blow up on the teachers or the principal. But the best thing is to sit, work it out, and talk to them.
mar xiriir waxaan leeyahay marka ilmaha dhiganaya dugsiga hoose sababta waxa way cunug inaan geeyo way ugu qasab inaan soo celiyo way ugu qasab markasta aan geeynayo aan soo celinayo macalinka waxaan yeelan karnaa aduu xiriir fiican naga dhaxay inaan sheekaysano su'aal is weydiino marka xiriir fiican baan dhaxmari jiray macallimiinta iyo waalidka marka iskuulka geelis dugsiga dhaxata still xiriirka iska fiican yahay laakiin high school marka cunuga gaaro cunug weynaado 14 sano gaaray buu noqonayaa marka asaga iska tagi karo asaga soo laaban karo inkastoo aan ka qayb qaato habeenada parent-naadka marka la yeesho parent-naadka aan iska aadno oo interviewgaas aan ka qayb qaadan laakiin waxa waaye xiriirka waa si yaraanaya cunug markuu sii weynaado.
New Canadians may be unfamiliar with the Canadian education system and assume that the education their child is receiving will be consistent with their education in their home country. As part of the relationship building process, the school can clarify what is expected of parents and outline the roles and processes that exist within the school.
laakiin halkaanita waxay noqonaysaa adiga iyo macallinkii inaa xiriir yeelataan oo aad ka warqabtid haddii kale tolo ilmihii idin dhexeeyay meeshii waa dhumaya annaga waa iska joognay guriga markii hore waddanka imaanay maana ogeyn macallinka inay qasab tahay inuu waalidku mar walba macallinka oo xiriir la sameeyo laakiin waxay noqonaysaa oo qasab nagu ah inaan ogaano inuusan kii Soomaaliya uu ka duwan yahay marka way ku effect gareynaysaa sababtoo ah macallinkii wixii uu Soomaaliya ilmihii u sameynayay kan kama helaysid marka waalid ahaan adigay noqonaysaa ina qayb macallinkeena xiriir badan aad la yeeliso
को बस यही होती है जब हम लोग नए आए होते हैं तो हमें वाज़ा तौर पे पता नहीं होता कि हम असातिज़ा से या स्कूल में जाकर हम किस तरह बात करें उनसे किस तरह मिलें अपने मसाइल किस तरह उनको समझाएं तो बस ये थोड़ी सी मुश्किल होती है फिर आहिस्ता आहिस्ता जो है हम उनकी बात समझने लगते हैं वो हमारी समझने लगते हैं फिर बच्चे भी नए आ चुके हैं यहाँ पर मुख्तलिफ बहुत सारे कल्चर के लोग होते हैं टीचर्स भी सब एक से नहीं है यानी हम ये समझते हैं जैसे यहाँ अंग्रेज़ होंगे तो खाली वो गोरे ही नहीं होते हर तरह के हर रंग नस्ल के टीचर्स भी हैं तो ज़ाहिर है हर एक का तरीक़ा जो है वो अलग अलग है तो थोड़ा सा ये प्रॉब्लम होता है फिर आहिस्ता आहिस्ता जो है हम एडजस्ट हो जाते हैं उस माहौल में
就是今天这个纠纠说，我想说这是一个方面，还说一个是说了是不是有用，这是另外。第二个就像中国孩子很担心，像中国家长跟中国老师的交流，因为老师是在上，家长是在下，学生在下，很怕就是说万一我说了什么，怕老师对孩子又有什么影响。对。
Before any meaningful or productive relationship is formed, contact must be made. Overwhelmingly, this responsibility to establish contact is perceived to be that of the school or teachers.
My first steps in dealing with the parents is the first phone call home in the beginning of the year. I do spend quite much time during my interviews. I do have Meet the Teacher night in the beginning of the year where I do set my expectations, my personal expectations rather than school expectations. And I do tend to go really on a different angle in my expectations from what I've seen. I understand their backgrounds, so I have an advantage. I must admit. The contact with them, making them understand that I believe and I understand where they come from. I do understand their struggles. I share my own experiences with them. So I tell them about my history, where I come from, and the kind of life I've had, exactly the same way they've lived before. I do understand their expectations. They have extremely high expectations, the sacrifices they've gone through and they're still going through. They will be going through to the end of time, in here. So I do set this connection from the beginning of the year. I spend a lot of time calling, meeting. By the end of the first month, I've had already met all my parents, and this is for every year. And I keep it up. I do keep it up. I actually have quite many of them who are friends, whom I know it may not be right in the culture or the system, but I do visit. I go out for coffees with them, and I do share a lot about the kids. Whenever I have any interview about the kids are there. The students are there. I would never meet with a parent without the child or the student being here unless it's really serious or private. Okay.
More meetings with parents. This is what I want to start, because newcomers come during the whole school year. So keep track of the new families that school has and try to involve them to different information session, which is not only in September one and in February another. But if it's possible, I know that maybe it's up to busy school and busy teachers, but if it's possible to get this some kind of information session, or even just sort of parents-teacher interview once every month, every other month or whatever, especially with ESL kids and parents. If I have a good student, if my son or daughter is a good student, I don't know the way to the school, and parents talk about this proudly. I didn't know where my son's school were because he was a good student. It was only school role to communicate, start to communicate with parents, and it's always bad news when school teacher calls home. It's always bad news. It's always about discipline, about bad marks, etc.
Is this in Russia?
Yeah. Okay. So this is the stigma they came with, and this is how important to explain that even if your student get marks like 90 or something, it's better for his success if you will keep very very close relationship with school, if you will go to any meetings or to all parents-teacher interview, etc.
At first, I think they should have probably getting to know parents, just have a meeting or a little maybe fundraising event or some social, getting to know probably newcomer or some welcoming newcomers and getting to know parents, and probably they will have a better relationship in the future to come. But first of all, they have to just accept you for who you are. That's where they have to start. and then they build from there.
The school environment is of incredible importance to the development of the parent-school relationship. An environment where parents are invited and encouraged to visit and be an active participant in the education of their children is essential.
I think you need to make the parents feel welcome, that they're wanted there, and make them feel comfortable. Because if they don't feel comfortable, they're not going to come in, no matter how much you try.
What about in the high schools? Have you found that there's any other initiatives other than parent-teacher sort of counseling sessions? Is there anything else that they've been doing to try to get you involved?
Concerts.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And when is what they call it, that thing with bringing the arts? I used to give my kids them like, arts from my country.
To bring.
Yeah, and they display it. You know that what they call it?
Black history.
Black history.
Okay.
Sometimes they keep it for a while.
And I think the one our children go to school, they have it's like an open house, so you could give your views tomorrow.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
They called on the phone. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this program is good too, where you let your kids go to the workplace for a day, or I think that's a great program too.
I think it's also important to have an open door policy. Because if you have, say, an admin where they have the door shut all the time, you've got to make an appointment to come in, and it may not be for a week or so, it doesn't work. But if you have where a parent comes in and they have a problem and can get right in, and so I've seen parents just walk in and say hello to you, and I think that's really important.
Because of the structures in place and the perceived role of the teacher, it is largely felt that the relationship needs to be initiated and maintained actively by the teacher. New Canadians may be unaware of their role in the education system, as well as the role and expectations of a Canadian teacher. It is for this reason that much of the onus is placed on the teacher to initiate and facilitate this vital relationship.
والأساتذة هن هالعلاقة هذه العلاقة هم هالأطفال. هلا الطفل إذا تفاهمتي معه تتفاهم مع أستاذه، إنه الأستاذ بنقول له أفكار هذا المجتمع وهذا الطفل بيجي منه. هون بده يصير اجتماعات بين المعلم والأب والأم. هذا المعلم بده يجي يحكي لنا شو بيعمل الطفل بالمدرسة، نفهم إحنا شو متطلباته طبعا وأشياء كتيرة، والأهل بدهم كمان يفهموا المعلم شو طالب من ابنهم.
طيب. What is also important for all parties in this relationship is that all parties are consulted and included in the process, so that any problems or challenges with regard to the student and their education be discussed and dealt with as a team.
अच्छा, जिस तरह से जब मैं आई थी तो मेरा बेटा छोटा था और बेटी को इंग्लिश आती थी, लेकिन बेटे को ना समझ लेता था, लेकिन यहाँ यू कैन सी देयर इज़ अ चेंज इन द एक्सेंट ऑल्सो ना, तो वो ज़रा बच्चे को टाइम लगता है पिकअप करने में। तो वो किंडरगार्टन में था, तो आई अप्रिशिएट कि उस टीचर ने मुझे 3-4 दिन देखने के बाद मेरे बेटे को, तो शी कॉन्टैक्टेड मी एंड शी सेड के आई डोंट नो व्हाट्स द प्रॉब्लम विद योर सन, के वो जो है ना समटाइम्स व्हेन आई आस्क हिम टू डू समथिंग ही जस्ट टर्न्स हिज बैक, आई मीन ही ट्राइज टू इग्नोर व्हाटएवर आई एम सेइंग, तो व्हाट कुड बी द प्रॉब्लम विद दिस किड। तो फिर मैंने पूछा भी बेटे से घर जाके, और फिर मैंने उसको आके बताया कि दिस इज़ द प्रॉब्लम, दैट ही इज़ नॉट ट्राइंग टू अंडरस्टैंड व्हाट ही इज़ सेइंग एक्चुअली, क्योंकि अभी अभी आया है, नया है उसके लिए। तो देन द टीचर पेड मोर अटेंशन ऑन हिम एंड ही ट्राइड टू एक्सप्लेन हिम मोर इन अ मच ईजियर वे। तो मुझे ये अच्छा लगा। हो सकता था वो टीचर कहती कि आई डोंट केयर इफ ही इज टर्निंग हिज बैक, तो लेट हिम डू लाइक दैट, व्हाट कैन आई से, बट शी डिड टेल दिस टू मी, और मुझे अच्छा लगा कि फिर मैंने भी थोड़ी हेल्प की बेटे की, और विद इन मंथ बच्चे यहाँ पिकअप कर लेते हैं।
हम उनको यही यकीन दिलाएंगे कि हम हर वक्त हाजिर हैं। हमारे बच्चे में अगर किसी चीज़ की कमी है, किसी चीज़ की ज़रूरत है, या वो नहीं समझ रहा है, तो आप हमें बुलाएं, फ़ौरन कॉल करें, या उसकी डायरी पे लिख दें, या फ़ोन कर लें किसी तरह भी, तो हम आपसे ताउन करते रहेंगे। तो इस तरह जो है टीचर, हम फिर अगर मिलेंगे उनसे, मिल के अपने मसले हल करेंगे। तो ये होना चाहिए कि टीचर्स और वालिदैन जो हैं आपस में ताल्लुकात रखें।
मेरा ये है कि टीचर को हर वक्त, अगर जैसे एक बच्चा है ही इज़ नॉट डूइंग वेरी वेल इन द क्लास, ठीक है ना, तो अगर उसको हर वक्त हम खुद भी अगर एक बच्चे को कंडेम ही करते रहेंगे ना एक बात पे, तो वो फिर डिटोरिएट ही होता रहेगा, ख़राबियाँ उसमें और बढ़ती ही रहेंगी। तो मैंने यहाँ पे देखा भी है टीचर्स अप्रिशिएट करती हैं छोटी छोटी चीज़ों पे भी। अगर आप अप्रिशिएट ज़्यादा करें बच्चे को, तो वो ज़्यादा अच्छे से ऊपर आता है, बजाय इसके कि आप उसको हर वक्त डांटती रहें या हर वक्त आप उसको ये दिखाती रहें कि you've done this wrong, you've done this wrong, you're not good in that. तो वो थोड़ी सी भी छोटा सा भी अच्छा थोड़ा काम कर ले तो वो करे. जैसे कभी कभी होता है ना कि टीचर्स से फील करती हैं कि ये ही टॉक्स टू मच, ही इज़ टू टॉकेटिव, ही इज़ ऑलवेज डिस्टर्बिंग द क्लास एंड दिस एंड दैट. तो अगर वो हर वक्त करते रहेंगे या आप पेरेंट को भी हर वक्त इसी तरह से बताते रहेंगे तो वो पेरेंट भी सोचेगा मेरे ही बच्चे के पीछे ये पड़ी रहती है खामोखा का. तो मतलब थोड़ा सा मतलब टीचर को कोऑपरेटिव होना चाहिए. अगर मैं ये नहीं कह रही हूँ कि वो उसकी बुरी बातें ना बताए, बिल्कुल बताए, लेकिन अलॉन्ग विद दैट वो थोड़ा सा उसको अप्रिशिएट भी करें. इससे टीचर्स मतलब बच्चा भी वो गुड फील करता है और पेरेंट को भी होता है कि हाँ नहीं उसके पास गुड साइड भी तो है मेरे बच्चे के लिए. तो इसमें ये होना चाहिए.
An important thing we must also remember as teachers is that communication need not only occur to solve a problem. Instead, an ideal relationship would include two-way communication from the onset of the year. Communication that builds trust between parents and teachers through the communication of student successes as well.
मेरी बेटी ग्रेड 6 में है माशाल्लाह. अभी इस टाइम जब वो 5th में थी तो टीचर्स ने मुझे बुलाया था कि आपकी बच्ची बहुत अच्छी तरह पढ़ रही है और मैं इनके लिए एक एक्स्ट्रा मतलब चंद बच्चे हैं जिनके लिए खुसूसी में उनके लिए कुछ यानी पढ़ाई के सिलसिले में कुछ प्रोग्राम कर रही हूँ. तो अगर आपकी इजाज़त हो तो मैं आपकी बेटी का नाम दे दूँ क्योंकि ये अपनी क्लास में बहुत अच्छी है. तो मतलब मैंने दे दिया था जिससे बच्ची भी बहुत खुश हुई और इसकी बहुत ही हौसला अफजाई हुई वो और माशाल्लाह अच्छी जा रही है. तो इस किस्म की ये छोटी छोटी जो बातें हैं टीचर्स की स्कूल वालों की इससे बच्चों में बहुत हौसला होता है और वो आगे और लगन और मेहनत से पढ़ते हैं.
The issue is more than just communication. It is about building a relationship of mutual respect and acknowledging that parents have an interest and role in their child's education, as well as acknowledging their efforts to advocate on behalf of their kids.
那么原因嘛，再加上就说，说了我女儿的英文呢，也就说了她，因为她的英文不是太好，她觉得她有这种自卑吧。她虽然其他方面她的成绩都很好，但是数学其他的任何的 subject 都很好，就是这个英文成绩她低于别人，她觉得很自卑。但是呢，那么就是随着这个时间的那个以后呢，我就经常找他们的，不论是哪一个老师，任何一个 subject，我都会有时候给他写一个条子，我就跟老师沟通就这样，因为我不可能有时间去见他们，那我可能会早晨老师他们一般来的比较早嘛，那我就8点钟的时候我会到教室里去，跟老师问一下这个我女儿这个课的情况，然后我说她上课是不是主动发言呐，不回答问题呀怎么办？我说能不能让她不要跟讲 Chinese 的那个，不要讲就是 Chinese 所谓的 Chinese 也是 Cantonese 了，的小孩坐在一起，让他跟那个讲 English speaking country 的那个孩子做一个 neighbor， 不要他有机会讲中文。那么这些老师呢，当然呢就是说我这样一个 request， 他们可能会做一些improve 啊，可能会做一些事情，但是也没有根本上的就是对我这种 request 也没有从根本的解决的问题。
Soomaali markaan joogo wax dhibaataa kuma qabin aqoonteeda jaamacad baan usoo qadan jabiyey dadka la noolaana saasaan u arkaya inay horumar ku gaarin Soomaaliya laakiin hadda markaan imidna waxaan filayay even still inaan horumarkii gaari karo sababtoo ah iskuulaad baan aaday wax baan ka bartay laakiin waxaan u arkayaa immigrationka aan kusoo galo wadankan ilmahayga impact inay ku ridayso sababtoo ah dhaqaalahayga maadaama hoos u dhacsan yahay ilmihii meel wanaagsan lama degaayo meel xun baan degayaa meel dowladda siisaan degaya dhibaato u keenaysaa marka ilmihii mataqaanaa ii sheeg waxbarashadoodii iyo horumarkoodii iyo aqoontoodii marka immigrationkayga iyo experiencegayga aan lahaa ani wax iskama bedelin bedel kalena waxaan u arkay wadankaanba inuu yahay struggle asagaba dagaal inaad ku jirtidba xaqaaga inaad u dagaalamaysid systemka inaad la dagaalamaysid noloshaada inaad soo saartid ilmahaaga u dagaalamaysid advocate inaad codka ilmahaaga u hadlaysidba sababtoo waxaa haddaa cunugaaga u dabagelo iskuulkii aad ka qaylinayn aad hadlayn sharciyada aad baranayn meesha istaagaan aad istaagin dhibaatada waxay ku dhacaysaa gurigaaga ilmahaaga ku dhacaysaa marka waxa waaye this country have to be more advocate in
Well, and I think that's another area where we've really reached out to parents is we run a community council. And several of our Somalian parents, because they're also community workers for SEPT or the settlement people or whatever, they're part of that process. We meet on a regular basis and we talk about what's going on in the community. How is what we're doing being perceived by our community? We want to know. So it's like a monthly or sometimes more often checkup on our performance as a school, and are we a part of the community? Are we viewed as part of the community? So I think that's really important too. But we're talking to the workers, whether it's from social assistance or it's from the health center or it's from the job placement people. They're all part of this community. We're all part of the same community. And so I think what we've tried to do, and I think for Somalian parents who come from a very sort of tribal existence, my understanding anyway, that sense of community is so important. And what we're saying is it's important to us too.